Welcome to CED Office Hour Live. Welcome to CED Office Hour Live. And as we're continuing our series on women and reentry, today we will be focusing on the Hamilton County Common Pleas Welcome Home Reentry Court. But before we get started into the topic, really would want to give a definition of what CED is, introduce our CED team members that are here today, and also go over the purpose of the show, and then we'll get into the topic. So CED Office Hour Live, CED stands for Community and Economic Development, is the Central State University Extension CED team's way of engaging the whole state at one time, right? And educating not only internally, but externally into the community as a whole, all the different aspects of community and economic development. And so community and economic development looks at, as an industry of a specialty, looks at how we live, work, play, and thrive and navigate through all those spaces. And it's a spectrum. So one end of the spectrum is the economic development. Those are the physical kind of planning things that you see, like, in Cincinnati, we're having this expansion of our bikeways and walkway paths throughout the city. The R for the Black Lives Matter mural just went up in Roseline a couple weeks ago. That's called creative placemaking, where you have arts and kind of social justice meet in these public spaces. You also have the just buildings, right? Affordable housing, office buildings, riverfront development, park development, all those kind of things, highways, walkways, subdivisions, all of that. That's all the economic development in. On the other end of the spectrum is the people development, the human services capital improvement. So that's workforce development, that's reentry, helping people to move to increase their level of self-sufficiency, workforce development, personal and professional development, all those things that deal with people specifically. And then the connector in between the two is Central State University, the court system, businesses, organizations to help connect those two bookends of the CED spectrum and help our communities just grow and thrive and navigate, right? And so as CED professionals, especially in extension, we look at that whole system like a systems engineer and say, based on our skill set, our bandwidth, resources that are available, and our subject matter expertise, this is what part of that system that we can plug and play in, right? And we like to say that we work ourselves out of a job because we are teaching people how to be self-sufficient. We're teaching businesses how to operate their businesses better, right? So it's not that we become their employee or their dictator or their boss or their board of trustees. We are here to help them move to that next level and whatever that plan is. So we're giving you the tools, right? And then you're going to implement those tools, and then you'll come back to us when you're ready for your next project or next endeavor, right? So we want to be those go-to people, but not take over people. And so that's how we work. And I like to say a lot of times in trainings that we do that we're the marriage you want to be in, right? We're your partner for life. We're not a one-off, but we are here through the duration of the growth of your company, the growth of self, and it's the growth of the community and resiliency of the communities. And so that's kind of how we work. So through Central State Extension, I have two of the members of our CED team. Would you all like to quickly introduce yourselves?
Sure, I can start us off. Eric Smith. I'm the Program Extension Associate for the Community Economic Development Team here at Central State University Extension, based out of West Ohio, near Toledo. and really
and
happy
really
to
happy to be here for this
conversation.
conversation.
It's
It's
been
such a
fantastic
fantastic
series.
series.
And I want to welcome you, Judge. I'm Ambrose Moses, CED Extension Educator in the Southwest region. My primary territory is Franklin County, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
And I'm Amber Twitty. I have the southern portion of Ohio, and I'm mainly based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Hamilton County. And they're both modest. I'm going to tell you a little bit about their backgrounds because they are relevant to the program topic today. Eric has a specialty in working in workforce development, also international economic development, and he's done a lot of work in urban areas, but as well as Appalachia, Ohio, in those spaces. Ambrose came up actually out of law school at the Ohio State University, and he has a lot of experience with legal aid, has been awarded different awards in this space of business entrepreneurship and just helping people all around. And then I, as you already know, been in community economic development, community planning. Trina and I started our education in that space together at the University of Cincinnati. So all universities in Ohio represented. And been in that space ever since in all aspects. So that's kind of the background of us. And I'd like to thank Richard Smith, who has joined us today from the community. And if you all would like Cheryl, Trina, and Judge Cross to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into the topic.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so very much for having me. I am Wende Cross. I am a Common Pleas Judge here in Hamilton County, Cincinnati, Ohio. For 2024, I'm the administrative and presiding judge of our court, and very delighted to be here with you. I'm also one of the founding members and the presiding judge over the Welcome Home Reentry docket in Hamilton County.
I'll go next. Trina Jackson, Director of the Hamilton County Office of Reentry. And Amber and I go way back, as she said, and thank you, Amber, for allowing me to come back. Thank you. Oh, and one thing I do have to say is that it is such a pleasure to work with Judge Cross and Cheryl to do work that's just passion-driven work. So thank you.
All right, and I'm Cheryl Miles. I am the Reentry Docket Specialist for the Welcome Home Reentry Docket. So I work directly under Judge Cross with just driving the mission of the docket. So basically my role is just coordination, being the liaison between ODRC and Hamilton County Common Pleas Court. So thank you for having us.
And can you tell us what ORDC is for the audience? I know what it is, but
Sorry. Ohio Department of Rehabilitations and Corrections. So basically yes. The prison system.
Yes. So Judge Cross has, we would like for you first to talk about just how you even got to this position, because that's a dynamic story in itself, right? And let me back up a minute. This topic, all of us on the CED team do work in this reentry space. Eric is doing some business development, entrepreneurship in conjunction with our agriculture team, who are working at Richland Correctional Institute on some urban agriculture and urban farming. So that he's doing some neat projects up there right now. But, you know, I was wanted to, April, as you know, was the kickoff of Second Chance Month. And so I said, I know some awesome boss ladies that work in reentry, right? So I said, let me highlight them and all the things that you all do, because you do such awesome work. But a lot of times the public doesn't know it unless they had to stand in front of you in court, or after they get out of jail, they're coming to you, Trina or Cheryl, to get direct services to transition back. So I said, let's highlight the things that you're doing so people know on the front end, right? And just a way to educate people about all the things that is more than just standing in front of a judge and getting sentenced to jail, getting fined for a ticket. And so just wanted to say that. So Judge Cross, kind of start off just giving us an overview of how you even what was your journey to even get to this position in the first place?
Well, let's see. Let me start off by saying I'm a local girl. I grew up in Cincinnati and by a single parent, and lived in some of the most modest neighborhoods in Cincinnati. But one thing about my family is they were big in education, and that was our ticket. And it was, kind of just honed in my early development that if you were going to get out of the hood, it was education was your ticket. And so I just happened to be smart, leaned into that, and graduated high school. I graduated from Princeton High School, and then went on to graduate from Miami of Ohio. Now, I always knew at an early age I wanted to be a lawyer. In fact, I was going to be the I was going to be the Black female version of Perry Mason. Yeah, that's what I was going to be. And because my mom worked a lot, so I spent a lot of time with my grandparents who watched Perry Mason all the time. And so it just listening to their stories about their civil rights experiences and their accounts of living in Jim Crow South and watching Perry Mason 3-4 times a week, I knew that I wanted to speak for others and give voice to the plight of others. And so I knew I wanted to be a lawyer at an early age. And so I went to law school, local girl, went to Northern Kentucky, and left for a few years to practice in a firm in Lexington, Kentucky. And then I was recruited actually by the U.S. Department of Justice to come and work as an assistant U.S. attorney. They had heard about my work in Lexington and actually reached out to me to see if I was interested. And so I became a U.S. attorney, which is a fancy word for saying federal prosecutor. And I did that for 10 years. I worked in the Eastern District of Kentucky, and then I transferred to the Southern District of Ohio at Cincinnati. And so just that whole experience in working with prosecuting cases, and in my mind, I was helping my community. So on a large scale, I was prosecuting bad actors that were damaging our community as a whole. And so I did that. But what I really discovered is that I was always leaning into the stories of the bad actor. How did you get here? How did you get to be getting ready to serve 30 years in prison? What's your story? And that's really not what the federal prosecutor's job is to do. But that was where my heart was. And so after 10 years, I decided to leave and open up my own practice. I took all of the skills and all of the training and all of the knowledge I had gleaned from the Department of Justice, which is tremendous amount of training. And I opened up my own firm in a neighborhood in Cincinnati, in Avondale. And for 9.5 years, I served individuals. And I felt like I was serving my community one person at a time. And so I began helping those same people that I was prosecuting because I understood their lived experience because they came from some of the neighborhoods I had lived in or grew up in. And so I did that for 9.5 years. And then I was asked to come to juvenile court by the judge over there, asked me to come over and take some skills I had and just help some children and families in Hamilton County. And I was delighted to do that. So I shut my practice down and I went over to juvenile court for 8 years. I thought it was only 1 year, but I fell in love with the kids. And so it was 8 years. And then I was approached I had been approached for, several years to run for judge. And I was like, no, I just need to be appointed because I don't want to run a campaign. I don't want to do any of that. I'm not a politician. That's not where my heart is. But I decided to run in 2020 because I wanted to see change in this particular court. And I had to put my money where my mouth was. So if I wanted to see change, and I had practiced in this court, then I needed to do something about it. And so I decided okay, I'm going to run. So I ran a very, surprisingly to myself, a very successful campaign and, got a seat on this court. 3 years later, I am now the presiding and administrative judge of the court. And so I'm just really delighted, and that's my journey. But along the way, please know that people helped me along the way. And I just leaned into that support. And so, Trina Jackson is one of those people when she wanted to help, re-entrance people coming from prison back into the community. And that's what she's been doing. That's been her work for a long time. And there was a way to connect the court system because they weren't connected to the Common Pleas Court system. And it's interesting enough that our Common Pleas Court has the second highest prison commitment rate in the state. And the Office of Reentry didn't have an in with our court. And so we talked, and I just, was very passionate about the work that Trina was doing. And so I said, well, you got to end now. And in 2022, through the work of Trina and our probation department, our assistant chief actually, and we devised a program and a docket. And I presented it to our entire bench the summer of 22, and they loved it. They said yes, and they wholeheartedly agreed that there was a gap in our resources. While we are sending people to prison, we're doing nothing to help in their rehabilitation as they come back into the community. And so that was the piece that was missing, and thus was born the Welcome Home Reentry Docket.
Love it. So can you kind of tell us what is people hear municipal court and common pleas, but you really don't know what it is, right? So can you kind of give us an overview of what common pleas court is, what its purpose is, and then also kind of go through the process of how do you become a presiding administrative judge?
Well, so the Common Pleas Court is a trial court. So there are several levels. You have the trial court, you have the appeals court, and you have your Ohio Supreme Court. We are a trial court, but our particular jurisdiction consists of felony cases. So any criminal matter that exposes you to prison for a year or more, that's where we come in. Municipal court has the same jurisdiction, except their limit is up to a year. So you can send someone to prison for up to a year, that's municipal court if it's a criminal matter. Anything over a year, that's the Common Pleas Court. So typically when you watch television, you see Law and Order, those type cases, that's our jurisdiction. That's a Common Pleas Court. We also have civil jurisdiction over civil cases, those cases that are not criminal, but have a dollar amount at stake that's worth $15,000 or more. So we have medical malpractice, wrongful death, fraud cases, personal injury, car accidents, things like that. So we have that type of jurisdiction as well. When someone wants to stop someone from doing something, we have injunctive relief authority that we can stop someone or we can make them do something as well. And so that's the difference between municipal court and Common Pleas Court. Common Pleas Court is more like your Law and Order type, Criminal Minds, Law and Order. And then Judge Judy would be like more like municipal court.
I like that analogy. And
Yeah.
can you kind of walk us through that process of becoming a presiding administrative judge? Because that is an accomplishment in and of itself. Without getting into the politics, but just say tradition, your predecessors, the list, the profile looks kind of pretty much the same. So
Yes.
what is that process, and what really does that mean?
Well, I will say I'm the second person that looks like me, my demographic, that has sat in this seat in the whole history of the court. And the process is very simple. It's unanimous decision by your colleagues. Well, it's majority, actually. If you have a majority vote, we take a vote at the end of every year, and it's a majority vote. In my case, it was a unanimous decision. And so I was very humbled by the confidence that my colleagues put in me, having only been on the bench, even though I've been a lawyer for a very long time, but having been on the bench just in my third year to be in this role is very humbling, and I appreciate it. It's a lot of work too. So it's a lot of extra work on top of your dockets, right? And so I run 2 dockets. I run a criminal docket, I run a civil docket, I run the welcome home reentry docket, and then I also run the administration of the court. A lot of work.
Yeah, that's your superpower. You're able to do all of them very well.
Yeah, that's a
So,
lot.
so segueing over into the welcome home reentry court, you kind of told us how it came about because you all identified a gap. Once that was identified, what were some of the processes used to actually institute it as a program? Because getting it accepted as a concept is one thing, but this is transformational types of ways for the court to operate, right? So this is proactive. We don't want you to come back here again.
That's right.
Because we want you to do something different, change your trajectory, and that traditionally in court systems is not common. So what were some of the things and challenges that you had to go through to get it from concept to implementation?
Well, this is where I leaned into Trina's expertise, because Trina has been in this space for a very long time and doing it with excellence. And so I really leaned into what she already was bringing to the table. For me, my piece of it, and I'm going to let Trina jump in, but my piece of it was we're talking about people, not just people who are already in the community, but people who are in prison right now, right? And we know they're coming back home, but how do we get them stable? What's that piece between prison and in the community? And that's what we were trying to fill, that gap. And so this is an early judicial release program. So our people are in prison, and the only way they can get out is either serve their entire time and perhaps get on post-release control, which is the old form of parole, or I let them out early. And I let them out early into our program. That's what the Welcome Home Reentry Docket is about. It is a very specific, thoroughly vetted program that we do. And then we do a reentry plan. And Trina's going to talk about that in a minute. But the reason why it's an early judicial release program is because one of the main things that we wanted to do was infuse hope to people who were in prison. So what I mean by that is, if you're in prison and you have no hope, you don't know what you're going to do when you get out. You may not have family still. You don't have a job. You may still have a drug problem. May even develop the drug problem while you were in prison. And you have some trauma or undiagnosed mental health issues. And you're thinking about getting out, and you're like, what do I have to, a lot of people are thinking, what do I have to lose? So they act out in prison, and that causes more problems. What we wanted to do was infuse hope for those who were still in prison, that if you essentially act right, get your act together by taking some classes, trying to get on the straight and narrow, there's a possibility that you can be eligible for this early release program where we will walk with you once you get out for up to 18 months thereafter, helping you with resources. Well, when we presented this and we go to the prisons, our team actually goes into the prisons all around the state of Ohio, and we talk about our program. I wish you could see the hope that is in the eyes of these men and women when we talk about our program. And they say, what? In Hamilton County? You know, we heard about this happening in the northern part of the state, but you're talking about the southern part of the state? There was nothing in the southern part of the state before we instituted this program. Nothing. So all of those people in various prisons throughout the state who were perhaps coming back to Cleveland, well, they had an avenue for reentry. But if they were coming back to Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, the southern part of the region, there was nothing. And you had to just hope that maybe your sentencing judge would let you out early, which sometimes they would and sometimes they wouldn't. But what happens when you get out? There was no mechanism to really help you. And so we decided to form a reentry plan. And Trina, I'm going to kick it over to you, so I won't keep talking, to talk about, how we developed this and rolled it out.
All right, thank you. So for our office, and I know everyone on our team believes that everyone should have this opportunity to break that whole cycle of incarceration. And so, how do we make that happen? Can we do it by, isolating this group of people and just giving them these intensive reentry supports, right? And so that's what we've done with the Welcome Home docket. I mean, it's very intensive. We're actually looking at a grant for the process, which is titled Smart Supervision. And so that's exactly what we're doing, is that smart supervision where reentry, probation, Judge Cross courtroom, all of us are overseeing these individuals, and we're just, like we do in our main office, walking with them through this process, but we're doing it a lot more intensively. So the goal really is we have to have a way to reduce recidivism. We have all these families out here and somebody's missing, somebody's incarcerated and they're struggling when they get out. And so, if they find our office, awesome. We work with them through that whole process. But if they can be released early to a docket, I believe, and we've had one person released and from the whole program, did very well and had his challenges, but still did great. And so I think we can demonstrate that intensive reentry support works for individuals that are judicially released, and we can reduce that recidivism piece. And one of the things that in Hamilton County we need to really work towards is having a system to measure recidivism. We can do that with our program participants, but overall, what does it look like locally for Hamilton County? We did learn that for people going to state prisons, it's about a 30% recidivism rate right now. So we need to break that down. That needs to be much lower.
So traditionally with the adult parole piece, right, it is set up to be very transactional. You get out, you get a job. If you don't get a job or you slip up a little bit, then we're going to slap you on your wrist, put with some handcuffs and send you back for at least 6 months, right? This is a program to me that kind of breaks that cycle. But we know that parole has been, that's the culture. How has this program kind of shifted, or what are some of the challenges in working in conjunction with the probation department so that it's more of a, you know, change your trajectory instead of sending you back to prison?
So people released to this program are actually on probation. And I would say, awesome thing about our Hamilton County Probation Department is we have Tiana Johnson, who is the Assistant Chief Probation Officer. And so I like to always recognize the fact that she is the only African American woman that's ever been in that spot. And so I know I say it every time he goes somewhere, and she's like,
Women reentry, boss ladies, like I said.
But I can't help it. So, you know, the whole culture of probation here in Hamilton County is definitely changing. You know, it's becoming definitely more supportive. You know, the goal is not to violate and send back to prison. The goal really is to, how do we help these individuals stay in the community so that they can be successful and stable? And so I would say that, you know, the culture, like I said, the culture of our Hamilton County Probation Department has really changed, and it's kind of permeating throughout kind of all levels of the probation department.
Now, Hamilton County, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think one of the things that we do well that kind of is changing and shifting the culture of that, if you get in trouble, you're going back to prison kind of mentality, is that our participants meet regularly with me, Trina, Cheryl Miles, and Tiana Johnson, the Assistant Chief of Probation. We meet with them as a team, and then they meet with me individually. So I meet with them twice a month, and then we meet together as a team. And our participants said, I've never sat down and had a conversation with a judge. I've always been in front of the judge in handcuffs, being talked at, not sitting in a conference room or in the judge's chambers, sitting on a couch or you know, a conference table, and just having a regular conversation about my struggles. That means a lot to participants. Yes. And we treat our people, not as a defendant. We call them by name, and we, you know, and they understand that this is a relationship that we're having with them, that we're walking with them, and they're not doing it alone, and we're just barking orders. When we have a dedicated probation officer on our docket, along with Assistant Chief Tiana Johnson, who's a member of our team, but we have a dedicated probation officer who they have access to 24 hours. They call if they say, hey, my mama's tripping, and I think she getting ready to throw me out the house. You know, and we sent him home to live with mom, and now they're having some you know, arguments or some you know, some issues in the home. They know to call the probation officer, and the probation officer sometimes, you know, intervenes, calls us, and then we can kind of help massage and get that
relationship
yes,
back on track.
And that's exactly what we did with our first participant, who has been successful and graduated from the program. But he had that issue, and he said, you know, I want to go back to prison. And no, you're not. And we were able to, his mom began to see a change in him. And then I think, did we move him? He moved out, right?
He has now gotten permanent housing.
He now has his own permanent housing. But he stayed with his mom, like they moved together, and that relationship just kept getting better and better and better. But it was because we would step in and intervene when we got really, really tough. And so I think that's the difference. That makes a big difference when the families know that we're there and that we're not just, it's just not a program. Like, this is really a service that we're providing, and it's not just a program that our participants feel like they're doing it by themselves, but we're walking with them.
And you have the team actually believing in the program, right? And being authentic, because when you're serving, if you're not authentic, it blows the whole ability to even trust the process, right?
Yes.
And when you were talking about that intervening and just having that personal conversation. As you know, my dad was the first African American assistant police chief for the city of Cincinnati, and growing up was, a little different because I was in this first responder household, and then he did all this community work. So I'm family to everybody, right? But I had shared my daddy with the whole county. But
That's right.
one of the things that was so odd to me when I was younger is that people that he arrested, and it'd be in the 70s, and we're in the 90s, they're like, you remember arresting me? Like, you want somebody to remember that they arrested you? I'm looking at them like, Daddy, what is wrong with them, right? But what stuck with me is that they said, yeah, I was wrong, but you didn't treat me bad. You treated me like a human with respect. You called me sir, and I was the one acting up. You stayed calm and you explained what the process and what was going to happen. So you managed my expectations. And I appreciate that you treated me with dignity, right?
Yes,
And I heard
yes.
that over and over and over again. So when I got older, then it clicked. Oh, this is customer service, right? This is what
Yes.
customer service really means.
That's what it
But
means.
when I was young, I'm like, Daddy, what's wrong with them, right?
Yeah.
Why are they? And my dad would remember what's wrong with my dad too, because it's like he remembered the situation. I don't remember your name, but this was situation. This is where
Yep.
I arrested you at, and this was what it was for. And I'm like, Daddy, how do you remember that? You've been a policeman for 30 years, right? Right. And he worked undercover, he worked in all
Yes,
aspects of the
yes.
police department. And so, but what stuck out was that humanizing, having empathy, learning what their story is, right? And a lot of people would say, because of you, I changed how I looked and treated other people, right?
Yeah.
So you never know how you impact people. Now,
And
as you mentioned,
once you begin those relationships, once you actually establish relationship, like you said, our participants, they want to do better because they know we believe in them, and they don't want to let us down. Now it kind of flips, they don't want to let themselves down, but they don't want to let us down now, because now we've built that credibility in that relationship with them. And they're like, I think some of them may see us as aunties,
Yep.
And it is like, I don't want to go and they'd say to Judge Cross that I messed up. That I don't want that. And that's really, and that really touches me, that they want to do well, not just for themselves, but they want to make us proud of them. And that's it. And that's it for me. What I love about working with this population.
And I don't know what the current numbers are, but I know around when Trina first started running the Office of Reentry, it was an average of over 5,600 people who came out of the prison systems to return back to just Hamilton County alone. And we were one of the largest, one of the counties with the largest population of coming back. So not only the largest sending people to prison, but also coming back. So with that being said, about how many people have come, and I know this is a newer program, but how many people have come through your specialized docket, the Welcome Home docket?
Well, our program,
Or part of the program.
Yeah. Cheryl, do you want to talk about that? Or
I would say total individuals that have come through the program would be about 9, just because it's a newer program. Our vetting process is very stringent. We are different than other specialized courts. So the individuals have to apply to the program in order to be placed on the docket, versus a judge just transferring the case to another judge to be placed on their docket. So we take a lot of time with our people. We do home visits, we do interviews with them, and this is all pre-release. We talk to the sentencing judge. So we do a lot of things. We create the reentry plan before they're let out. And so with that, all of those moving pieces, it is a little bit slower. But I would say currently we have 5 total clients. And of course, we've had one person graduate, and we're actually going to have our first graduation in June. So we're all very excited about that.
So I don't feel like it's
It's
a slow number at all because it's case management, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work that goes into that behind the scenes, and it's behavior modification. So you can't change what someone did over the last 20 years or 10 years in 6 weeks. You know, they always like to say, what can you do in 6 weeks, right? So no, it's about impact. And you will
Yeah.
find that because of the relationships that you did, the ones who've come through there, they're going to be your biggest ambassadors, and they're going to tell their friends, nah, man, you got to get your stuff straight. You got to come and you're going to call Miss Cheryl. This is the program, blah, 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 blah.
That's right.
And that it will continually build. So the thing is that you all have a quality program, and it's impactful and effective. So
And
don't
we just
worry
expanded.
about the numbers because they're going to come. And then you're going to be like, oh
Yes.
my God, the numbers are here, right?
We're being
Thank you,
patient.
thank you for that encouragement. We have, so that's our prison program. We have just expanded our program for the jail-based program as well. So just the people that are in the jail in Hamilton County, we're creating a program for them as well. Because, you know, a lot of people mess up on probation, and when they come out of the Justice Center in Hamilton County, and then what happens is the judge will either send them back to the Justice Center or send them to prison. And what we want to do is we want to create that gap, fill that gap between, you know, them going from the Justice Center to prison with our program, because we know it's working. And so we just created that. I don't think we have one person from our jail base that I think we just put in.
Not right now. We have people pending,
Okay,
currently pending, but we have we've gotten a lot of traction. We've gotten our flyers out in the Justice Center. We're talking to attorneys, talking to judges. So it's another like pilot, another push to just do good work. But we do have some traction. We've gotten some applications, so we have people pending.
So one of the things Trina's familiar with is I created the Entree to Entrepreneurship program. So it's a program for the reentry population, whether they're still in jail or got out of jail or just have a record, because to learn about entrepreneurship opportunities. So Trina, even though we kind of had to put it on hold, is going through the governor's intellectual property process and finalizing that classroom curriculum for that phase of it. So that's something that we can partner with you guys on. Another thing is any of the workforce development needs. We have workforce development programming because we're paid through USDA and the state of Ohio. Our services are free. So those are different things. Learning about agriculture, just general business, things like that are different ways. We also have an online high school equivalency program, formerly GED, where it's virtual. So what we found as a gap in services is when they're in prison, they may be eligible for that kind of programming, but it's such a long waiting list. By the time they get there, if they're too close to being released, then they're not allowed. Our program will allow that person to start, and when they get out there, they can continue. It doesn't stop. And there's a lot of one-on-one mentoring. One gentleman finished the program, got his GED, and then the lady that works in that program tutored him to get ready for the military services test, and he is now in the military. He's been in there about 4 or 5 years now. So those are just programs to think about, that how we at Extension can partner with you. And then our other teams, such as the Family and Consumer Sciences and 4-H and Youth Development, those are things that we can look at. The 4-H team, even though it's youth-centered, but they always do a lot of family things, right? So that's a way to reunify that person with their family and have some formal activities and still learn, farm to table, food and nutrition, things of that nature. So we can be creative around that. Ambrose had a question or comment.
Yeah. A little combination of both. I want to, thank you all, the three of you for the work and the service that you're doing in this space. And it really brings to mind, some of the things I learned going all the way back to undergrad. There was the legal philosophy of sociological jurisprudence, which is really what I think I try to ascribe to and live by, and which is where good law can only be made when one understands the social context in which that law is to operate. And Judge, what you've described in terms of your history and leading up to your current role, it really sort of embodies that. And this program really is sort of an outcome from that kind of approach, to the law and how it impacts the community. So this is really hopeful and good to hear, to hear that, because in undergrad, I also did an internship with the parole board, and they were going through at that time, they were changing their guidelines that they used to determine who was going to be paroled and who wasn't. And my role as the intern was to sit there, go through these microfiche, which shows you how far back we were, microfiche, and score each of these inmates as they were, according to education, substance abuse, prior offenses, and the age when for their first offense. And the thing that hit me was that they were starting at 11 years old, 12 years old with juvenile type matters. I sort of took the approach, we must avoid the legal system, the criminal justice system at all costs. Because once you're in it, they kept coming back. And so that's sort of where, in terms of what I sort of devoted myself to, and when we talk about community and economic development, how do we build opportunities to avoid folks getting into that situation?
Yes, yes.
But as you talked about this program here, you mentioned your group, your committee that sits down, and you meet with them individually, and then you guys, as you were describing it, I was like, that's a lot of resources to put in there. So when you say 9 folks going into it, you can only do so many, because you have, like you said, you got your other 2 dockets. So what is the idea, or what's the plan in terms of scaling your at least the prison? I was surprised to hear about the jail, because the prison seemed like it's gonna. What's your plan for scaling that to accommodate more?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, and I appreciate your comments as well. So I have spoken with a couple of judges on my bench who, they're kind of they're interested, but early judicial release is a risk for many. Risk that some judges are like, ooh, I don't know about releasing people early, because what if something happens and then my name is painted in lights? We judges think about that in Ohio because we have to be elected, right? But they're seeing that this works. And my goal is to show not only the community, but to show our bench that it works, so that they feel more comfortable in saying, you know what, I'm going to try a docket too. I want to help too. Our goal is to get more judges involved with reentry. As a result of the work that Trina has been doing, municipal court has decided to dip their toe into the reentry space. They don't do it like, quite like we do it in as robust of a program that we have, but they have decided that, what, this is valuable to our community. And so municipal court, where traditionally they have never, our court had never thought about reentry. And so, we thought of our role as, once we sentence, we're done. And now people are really beginning to see value in the reentry work. And it's already spread to municipal court. So I'm hoping that we will have a couple of more dockets with our judges seeing that this really works, particularly after our first graduation. we're hoping our first graduation will be, just, high energy. They can see the transformation in our participants. They can hear from the families and how this program helped them, and how it strengthened the family, how the people got jobs and now they're productive. They have no desire to go back to their old lives. I'm hoping that they'll say, hey, we want to do that too. So we're hoping to duplicate ourselves.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, and to just add to that, our county commissioners are supporting this work wholeheartedly. I mean, they put their money where their mouth is, you know what I mean? They continue to invest in reentry. And we're all truly appreciative because we couldn't do the work without that level of investment. And I would say that, for a lot of reentry offices and coalitions, they're really trying to get their commissioners and their leadership to support them so that they can do more, because they need to do more in these communities and different counties. But for us, we've got their support already. And so it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, we're so grateful to our county commissioners. We're so grateful.
So Eric has to pop off. So he just wanted, because he's got to go into do a training, but he felt that today was very excellent, insightful, and he's much gratitude. He also put in the chat some of our GED program information for you as well.
Thank you.
I also put in the chat the link to the Hamilton County Welcome Home Reentry Docket webpage.
Thank you.
So we're actually coming up. This time went fast.
It did.
We're actually coming up on the end. I'm thinking it's 2:30, and I looked down. I was like, oh no, it's 2 minutes to 3. So Ambrose, do you have any closing comments?
No, the comments that I made just a few moments ago. Yes, but thank you all, Judge, and then as well as Cheryl and Trina for coming back. Thank you all for sharing with us today, and this is really good work that you're doing.
Yeah, and I would just like to say we look forward to finally being able to do some programming with you guys. Me and Trina kind of been in discussions over the last couple of years, but it's looking like we're getting close to being able to do it now. And Cheryl and Trina, do you all have any final comments or questions, or Richard?
I do not.
Okay,
No,
I have one quick question though before we close out, and it's for you, Cheryl. Okay, so you're in the front line doing, you're the face of this program, because they're going to come through you, you're going to screen them and all that stuff. How has that impacted you? What is your feelings towards the program?
Honestly, it's exciting. Being a part of something new, a new initiative is always exciting. Sometimes it can be frustrating, just because of the parameters and things like that. But overall, just because we get the question all the time, is like, what do you love most about the work you do? And it's just actually seeing the change, seeing someone, because I see them at the very beginning. I see them just as a profile, just an application, just a picture, just what they did. But being able to be a part of accepting them into the program, seeing the growth, seeing the change that they've done over time, because our program is 12 to 18 months. So just seeing that from the first beginning to when they leave, and how hopeful they are for their future, and the changes that they made. They got employment, they may have stable housing, they've created great relationships with their family, with their children. It just shows that the work that we do is impactful and it's positive, and we're creating a change.
Yep, one person, one family at a time.
Yes.
Richard, do you have any closing comments or thing you'd like to say? Okay. And Judge Cross, we're going to close out with you. Do you have any final things that you would like to say, remarks or comments?
I just want to thank you for giving us an opportunity to even talk about this work. I think that the more we talk about it, the more people can understand. We have to demystify our system, our justice system, to everyone, because there are some things that we need to work out, obviously, right? So some systemic issues, but demystifying the system is really one of my priorities for 2024 and 2025, just going into the public and helping them understand what the system is about. And, I just ascribe to the philosophy that we have to be the change that we want to see. And so, if everyone just in their sphere of influence, if their space in their lanes could just create something that helps someone else's life be changed for the better, some type of transformative anything, any effort. If we all did that, that would just make our culture and our country change. And so we're just doing our little piece of it in our lane, in our sphere of influence, and we hope it's making a difference.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you again, because I know you have 4 different dockets and special programs and administrative stuff, for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule to spend an hour with us and just help educate the public on the good things that are going on in your court. So without further ado, this will close out today's edition of CED Office Hour Live. And next week we will have Tamaya Denard on there and talking about her nonprofit work and reentry and her story, which is, a journey in itself, and all the good things that she's doing. So feel free to join us any week if you have available from 2 to 3 on Thursdays. Thank you.
Thank you.